Welcome to Be Well with MS podcast, where we discuss science and science-based tools for day-to-day living with multiple sclerosis. You will also find meditation soundtracks for building up resilience and improving your well-being. Hi, I'm neurologist at Torbay and South Devon NHS Foundation Trust. This podcast is separate from my clinical research and teaching roles at Torbay. However, it's a desire to bring my experience from work I do as neurologist about science and science-related tools to general public. So today we're going to talk about sex drive, and love living with multiple sclerosis. It happens to be that I'm recording this episode on Valentine's Day, but it's suitable for day-to-day living. If you are in a relationship, or if you are single or planning to be in a relationship in the near future, it's for you. We will start with the sex in MS and how does multiple sclerosis affect the sexual function, what can be done to improve sex if you have multiple sclerosis, or if you're single. We will cover how we connect at 3 different levels: biological, psychological, and philosophical. We will talk about the 3 different attachments to make love, and we will cover 5 different love languages that shapes our relationship and also helps to choose the right partner for us. We will also talk about to be in love and to love. What's the difference? So tune in and listen to this episode. I will share my own experience. I will share my experience as a neurologist working with people with MS every day. And I also use the literature, books and publication and research to cover my thoughts and ideas for this particular episode on sex drive, and love living with MS. If you feel that multiple sclerosis has affected your sex life, you are not alone. According to the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, sexual response such as arousal or orgasm can be affected by damage to the central nervous system, as well as by other common MS symptoms such as fatigue, spasticity, which is increased tone in your limbs and spasms that you're getting, abnormal sensations in your parts of your body and limbs, psychological factors such as depression and anxiety. As a result, sexual problems are common among people who have MS. A study published in November 2016 in BMC Neurology found that the majority of people with MS reported one or more problems with sexual function, with usually lack of sexual interest. It's around 42% of women. A difficulty with erection, 40% of men, being the most common issues. The study also noted that sexual dysfunction was directly affected by depression and fatigue. A more recent meta-analysis of the studies published in the Systemic Reviews in January 2021 found that sexual dysfunction is highly prevalent in men with MS. It's around 63%. An early study published in the Journal of Research in Medicine Science found that 64% of women with MS experience sexual dysfunction, with the most common issue being troubled with orgasm. It's around 41%. All these issues can be difficult to discuss with a partner and can therefore lead to sexual and relationship problems. But once you understand how MS leads to problems with sex, you can focus on finding ways to regain your enjoyment of sexual intimacy. So the direct effect of MS on sexuality, as you know, that there are some injuries and damages of the nervous system that carries messages from your brain to your sexual organs. And clinical psychologists suggest that, who specialize in MS, that it's the very common symptom and complaint working with multiple sclerosis patients. For men, this can be difficult to attain or maintain the erection because of the reduced sensation in the penis and difficulty ejaculating. For women, it can mean reduced sensation in the vagina and clitoris. Painfully heightened sensation also is a case, or vaginal dryness. Both men and women may have trouble with arousal and reaching orgasm. The indirect effect of MS on sexuality, it can interfere with sexual desire or function in less direct ways or have a libido dampening effect. These include MS-related fatigue, spasticity, which is an increased tone, psychological factors related to self-esteem and mood changes, and emotional factors including depression, anxiety, anger, and the stress of living with such a chronic illness. Many individuals with MS no longer see themselves as sexually desirable, and this negatively impacts on their sex lives. So some of the MS symptoms may be so personal that it's so difficult to tell to your partner or healthcare provider and ask for some help. quite common bladder and bowel control problems can present some fairly significant challenges too. Those kind of symptoms are not directly related to sexual machinery, but can intervene with interest and ability to participate in sex. For a single person with MS who may want to have a sexual encounter, there may be some hesitation and concern with revealing the problem involved. One of the biggest losses is that loss of spontaneity, because of some of the MS symptoms require a lot of preparation living with MS. Romance and MS don't have to be mutually exclusive, although you might find it embarrassing or difficult to talk about intimacy concerns, communications with both your partner and medical team. But this is the first step to getting your sex life back on the course, back to normal. We always recommend to our patients that they plan a date night. Sex often needs to be a planned event for individuals with MS. So plan a time with no distractions and coordinate your medications to optimize your control of any symptoms that may intervene with sex. So how to overcome the problems and how to rise the drive and how to go back to your normality. Okay, so how to regain your sexual pleasure living with MS? Well, there is a lot of help, as you know. For men, there are oral medications, injections, and small suppositories that are inserted into the penis. Some inflatable devices, implants that may help those with MS deal with erectile dysfunction. Medication can also help with abnormal sensations and spasms caused by MS. For women, lubrication, or men too, using a liquid and gelled water-soluble personal lubricant for vaginal dryness can improve women's sexual pleasure and alleviate discomfort. Also, quite often women have a bacterial or fungal vaginosis, which can be managed with a medicine, and also some preventative aspects such as wearing the cotton underwear, avoiding the synthetic, not overdoing with the showers, and maybe instead of the soap and other gels, using some more aqueous cream for washing the genitals, and not overdoing too much, because you're cleaning and removing all the good bacteria that helps to prevent from having a bacterial or fungal vaginosis. So being mindful from that perspective. For women, using vibrators may consider to boost the stimulation and arousal. Also, if there is still a problem to get the orgasm and achieve the arousal, some therapy for individuals or couples therapy can be very helpful for both partners with physical and psychological issues. Options include both mental health professionals and sex therapists that could help you for this instance. If the bladder is of any concern, if the leakage is the problem during the intercourse, so intermittent catheterization or medication can help to improve the techniques to help you to overcome the leakage during the intercourse. So I highly recommend to talk with your doctor openly without any hesitation about what treatments and combination of treatments could be very helpful for you. Sexual dysfunction is quite common, so chances that your doctor is more comfortable with the topic than you think is high. In addition to offering their own suggestions, they may refer you to the other experts such as urologists, therapists, or others that if they don't have the answer, ask for a referral if you feel a specialist could give you more help needed. Now, if you are single, dating can be complicated even when you are dealing with a long-term condition like MS, and here are some tips to navigating it. Put yourself first. The better care you take of yourself, the more you will have to offer. You may have more energy to go and meet other new people. Check out the apps. Some dating apps are designed for people who have health conditions, and there are some charities and organizations where you can meet people like you. Talk about it when you're ready. You may feel comfortable mentioning MS on your dating profile, or you may want to wait until you think a connection is promising. Even if your symptoms are visible, you don't have to specifically tell that right away. Say something like, I'm working through some issues with my arm, until you are ready to talk about it in more detail. Prepare for the conversation, so the more you know about MS, the easier it will be explain to everyone else around you. Share things like saying, I might need to keep our plans flexible because sometimes I wear out easy and I need some time for myself. I get fatigued quite often and I need all that space and time for myself. Yeah, just be wise and be kind to yourself. Always remember, you're more than your MS. MS is not who you are. Remind yourself that you can put yourself out there and have a rewarding romantic life, just like anyone else. If your date can't handle your MS, they are not the right person for you. That's it. Full stop. Leave it and go. Let it go. If you're dating someone who's got MS, when you get these news, it might take you a little time to adjust and to digest the information. You may not be sure what to say. Say that maybe you need some time. Say that if you have maybe questions, ask your partner if your partner is open to answer the questions. If it is hard to find the words right now, simply just thank your partner for trusting you, for explaining, for sharing that very sensitive information. And you may want to read about MS on MS Society and MS Trust web pages or any other informative and robust resources online. Just be, again, very mindful what you're reading. There are some forums that may give you a false understanding of this condition. And if you still have questions and you would like to learn more about the condition, you may just go to see your doctor and ask about this disease. Being considerate is a good idea in any relationship. Now, last words about the sex and sex drive. Just remember, being healthy, being fit, eating healthy, exercising, being mindful who you sleep with, having good skincare, having some plans in place for sexually transmitted diseases. And if you have concerns, you need to book yourself into the sex clinic, get that checked. HIV processes, syphilis, it's all there. Being aware of the conditions and diseases that you may develop, in particular if you're having multiple partners and you don't know them well, it's worth exploring and keeping an eye and getting things checked. So the importance of healthy living is enormous when we talk about the sex life. And as we all know, there is sex without love and love with sex. So let's talk about love. What is love and what is to be in love? These are completely two different concepts and definitions. So now, talking about to be in love, this is something that some of the psychiatrists call, this is a disease. To be in love, it's madness. Because being in love, you lose all the perception of the world, the sense of the reality. Everything becomes so in a bright light and you become blind. There is a 4 times higher serotonin level in your body that really you start losing the sense of the reality. And so to be in love is your personal issue. That's how you interpret the other person. And usually this person has got only positivity and no negativity during this period of time whilst you're in love. To love, it's a connection, a relationship between people. So you get a response from other person when you love somebody. And all these bright colors slightly fade. You start looking and seeing so many other layers of this person. A lot of negativity. That's the time when the conflicts may start. But about this we'll talk later. There are 3 layers of the connection when it concerns love. So the connection can be formed with another person if you are at the same level of biology. So that means that the smell is very important of the other person. That's how it gets attracted. That's how you see the person being attractive. Also, the speed, the tempo. Are they quick in making decisions? Are they slow? Are they taking their time? What is the sexual temperament? How often people like to have sex. Some people have sex less frequently than the others. Some people have sex every day. And do you match at that level or not? And what is your energy level? Some people like to sleep all day long, and the other would run the marathons and climb the mountains. Are you compatible at the biology? That's how you should look at your relationship and love. Now, the other layer is psychological connection. So how I interpret my emotions. Are these emotions very dangerous to me? And can I relax having these emotions when the fight and flight mode switches on? How do I respond? How do I react? And is that compatible with another person that I'm forming the relationship? And what about my feelings? How can I explain my feelings? Do I feel the same as my other person? Can we connect at that level? How can I identify my emotions and feelings? And these are two different things. Emotions can trigger feelings, and feelings can trigger emotions. So they are interconnected. And how do I express my emotions? Is it compatible with another person? So that's another layer to think about when we connect and we are in love or we love people. When we are in love, we quite often miss that opportunity to define the layers of being connected from the biology or from psychology perspective, because everything seems to be matching for us. Now, thinking about how do we tolerate the success, or when we fail, how do we overcome that failure? It's called frustration tolerance. If I wanted something but I didn't get it, how do I overcome these things? And do I discuss with my spouse or partner these things? So these are things that are day-to-day living, and how do we communicate with each other efficiently? And the third layer that we connect and how we connect when we love is philosophical. That's usually a representation of the values in life. Do I want to be married? Do I want to be just in a relationship? What's my life is going to be? How do I plan my life? Do I want to have kids or not? So it's not looking at each other. It's looking to the same direction. That's how we form this philosophy of life. And do we match at this level or not? That really influences how we're going to feel, think, and behave in our near future being in a relationship. When we clearly understand where we are going together, what we are going to do, how we're going to do, life becomes much, much easier. And if there is one level that is missing in the relationship, let's say like values or philosophical agreement, you only maybe vibe at the level of the psychology and biology. So most likely these couples, they would connect at the being lovers, and infidelity may arise from that perspective. But living together may be not possible if you only connect at the psychology and biology. So you really need to have the third layer, which is your values. But if you only connect at the value and philosophy and psychology level, you could probably just be good friends. And if there is a biological factor, which we call chemistry quite often in these days, if the chemistry is missing, perhaps don't sleep with that friend. Just buzz at the level of the similar philosophy and psychology and help each other to navigate through this life. Love is hard work, as we all know. When you're in love, you quite often miss all these three elements and levels, the biology and psychology and philosophy. It's all looking very nice and bright, and there is nothing that would be in comparison to this new fresh love and being in love with a specific person. You see this person as ideal at all the levels for you. When you do realize I love this person rather than being in love, this is when you lose looking throughout the rose glasses. You lose that the capacity to look at that person with the bright colors, and you start seeing the minuses, that not only pluses. Quite often people split at this stage, and it may happen within 3 years. So as we say, love lasts 3 years. So that's not love. It's being in love that lasts the maximum period of time, which is 3 years. So then we need to make a decision once we feel like now the love starts, and if we connected to all the layers, we think that this is the partner I would like to spend the whole life. We start making rational decisions whether to stay and commit for a long period of time or short. And it's interestingly enough, our brain, it has got left brain, and which is rational, executive function, planning, thinking, where the right brain is more sort of a illusion, delusion, emotional brain. And there is some theory that women have got 10% higher number of the fibers between the junction of the left and right brain, and their decisions towards the partner is much more balanced than men. I don't know whether to believe this theory, but that's anatomy that we know from some research. And we are so much misguided by the films and books and TV series that gives us distorted sense of the reality that love must be something that is moving mountains. The love is something that needs to be very colorful, with loads of dramas, and then in the end, they meet again and live long life forever. Life is not like that, and that's a distorted sense that is given and presented to us. We need to find a partner who is going to love, and we're going to love the partner too. But always think about that. Quite often people say, oh, I need a partner who's going to love me, protect me, save me. And we quite often miss the opportunity to ask ourselves, but am I in the position to love and give love and make this person feel much, much better, and protect and give that sense of the security? We quite often forget that element. Some people never know how to love. They do so many mistakes when they are in a partnership or relationship. They never been taught in their childhood, and it becomes very tricky and difficult to distinguish the reality from the illusion. And the images of life might be so much distorted. They could be influenced by films and movies, and it becomes a big issue to love and be loved. This is a skill which comes from your family. That as a child, you do observe your family, how they behave, how your dad and mom behaves with each other, how they are forming the relationship, and lack of experience when mating in your teenager or student years. Not having that experience also can affect the quality of the relationships, and the dating experience, meeting different people, can later affect how you choose your partner in your life. If you haven't got all that experience, if you've never met people, and if you believe that you're going to sit at the table and there is a person who's going to sit next to you, is going to become your person of life, that's a very delusional image of living this life and pursuing for love in your life. So when you form love and relationship that is secure, it's very important that you know how to get over the conflicts which are unavoidable. It's always going to be there. In love, the foundation of the previous in love phase is something that people, when they go into the conflict, they refer to the phase of being in love because it was so beautiful, no filter, loads of emotions and feelings, and that always helps to overcome any conflict that happens later in your years when you are together and you love each other. So sometimes love may feel like it's very boring process, and the more you're secure in your relationship and stable, the more your plateau with all the vibrations and emotions and feelings in your current present relationship, the more it may feel very boring. But according to the research, this boring relationship and love may last much, much longer, in contrast to those that have loads of dramas, loads of conflicts that come and go, and try to sort of form the relationship, which is quite challenging from the beginning. So the more smoother, the more continuous process, the more loving and long-term relationship is going to be for you. So don't forget to be grateful, thankful, thank your partner for any small attitudes and behaviors, and any serves that's been given and to you in the form of the gift or maybe just kind words. Just encourage and be positive. Use the positive reinforcement to form your beautiful, nice, loving relationship. What poisons love in general? So usually it's people's insecurities or previous bad relationship experiences, and how people were brought up as a children. What did they see? What the families were around? How did they develop as an adult? Also, quite often the financial constraints is a contributing factor for people to break down and have a collapse of the relationship. Sometimes people are competing with the power. Who influences the who's more powerful in a relationship? Also be aware of being in a relationship that you have no communication going. You have struggled to explain yourself if you like or dislike or anything that is internally boiling inside. And if you're not being verbal and expressive about your feelings, that may accumulate into a big conflict that might not be solved later on, or it might complicate the whole relationship if you keep it to yourself and not communicate efficiently. Just bear in mind that discussions are completely different from arguments. Arguments is more so showing the power. It's more almost like a fight and who's going to win, where discussion is coming to the conclusion, coming together to agree on end subjects that you're discussing about. Now, focusing more on what helps to love and have a very nice relationship. So usually it's having a matching layers of these three elements that I discuss, being compatible at the biology level, psychology and philosophy, having the same value, knowing what is true, what is false, what do you want to form, what do you want to achieve from this relationship, being honest with your feelings and emotions and not pretend to be okay and not to pretend to be sad and to manipulate another person. That's really harmful for any relationship. And knowing what is your expectation from the relationship and telling and explaining that to other people. Also, what is beautiful here, that your efforts and gratitude for any service that you receive from your partner, any willing to work together on the relationship, and you don't expect any return from your partner, lowering your expectations when you're actually giving your effort and energy or giving your gratitude. Don't expect anything in return, because we have bad days and good days, and we're so different, and people may come back to you with a kindness the following day, not necessarily they respond to you on the day when you are sharing your best efforts. People refuse to change or adapt quite often, and they expect that, oh, okay, so I'm not changing. I am who I am, and then somebody needs to adapt to my character, to my personality. But life is constantly changing. The processes, events, shapes, and changes. We grow as we live. There must be some flexibility in your relationship. Staying who you are constant without changing, growing together is really something that is going nowhere in a way. You really need to be adaptive to anything that is coming your way, or you're giving that experience to other people. So it's working together, growing together, coming to the agreement with any challenges and any conflicts that may arise in your future. Accepting partner as a partner equal, not feeling superior or lowering is adequate for being in a very healthy relationship. And empathy is something that you understand how people are feeling, what the emotions they are experiencing, and particularly living with a long-term condition like multiple sclerosis. There is so much to take on, so many aspects, so many symptoms, so many feelings and energy level fluctuations throughout the day, and it changes day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute, and looking that from that person's, your partner's perspective and understanding is purely based on love, your trust and relationship and belief. All the relationships have crisis, and we just need to accept that it will pass. It's never going to stay forever. There are some theories that families live 3 months in a good terms and 3 months in bad terms. It's like seasonal, and we got these seasons in our relationship. This is still love, nothing else. It's still love. Quite often people discuss that, can love end? And when it happens, what happens? I think that it's important to look at the components and elements that didn't keep this love continuous. And again, going back to the layers and examining them carefully, whether you're no longer connected at the biology level, it doesn't stimulate, it doesn't give you any arousal, the sense of touch, the sense of smell is no longer indicating that you want that person. Maybe there is a psychological issues that you vibe at different level, you don't have any similar emotional well-being or how you deal with the challenges emotionally in this life. And maybe your values have changed. Maybe you grow in a different direction. Maybe you're not seeing each other. Maybe you're traveling around the world and you just meet on the random occasions that your personalities, your characters are being shaped by the people around you, not necessarily the people you live with or a person you live with. So really it could be something that is really challenging, and also taking into account that we all age together. There are with aging process, there are some illness that may happen in our lives, such as developing MS or MS may change, for example, or developing other conditions, or family members starts aging too, and you have to give a good care of your aging parents, and that builds a lot of tension within two-person and love and the commitment and the relationship that you're in. So you need to decide before you go into the relationship, what happens to us if one of us become ill? Is it something that you discuss with your a partner when you are in love? Perhaps you skip that. It's not relevant. Your serotonin level is too high that overwhelms your so much positivity that you see in another person, and you not necessarily discuss what happens if somebody becomes ill. How would you take that challenge? But it's really important, and it's quite often after many years in being in a relationship, people decide to part in a different directions, and that's quite often, according to the statistics, is because of the third person involvement. It becomes even more complicated. As the person in love, again, goes through the phases of delusional, of losing the sense of the reality, it's a new phase of being in love. And if this person doesn't have strong ethical, moral values, it becomes really challenging, and that person probably most likely is going to leave the current long-term relationship. It goes into the consideration, is it something for a short-term or long-term commitment? Happiness and pain sometimes comes together, and for making these decisions that requires a huge mental stability, mental capacity to see things, to evaluate, assess things with a current partner and the partner that you're in love, and having that sense back to the reality despite the surge of the serotonin chemicals that change in your mind. But going back and reassessing and having all this knowledge that I'm just sharing is really valuable, because you would know how to reflect. It's clear. It becomes so clear when somebody tells you this story. It tells you how we connect, how our relationships are formed, and at what level we are formed, and how to best assess your current relationship versus your new relationship, if in case you become in love with a new person. And statistics suggest that people who leave their partners for the third person, very rarely they form the marriage with a third person who's involved into that long-term other relationship. But sometimes, despite all the reflections and all the thinking and returning back to the reality, the sense of the reality, still people make decision to leave and change their life, change their partners. And if one of the partners in that two people's relationship is definitive that they decided to leave and form a new possible relationship, this relationship between these two pre-existing partners is not quite often possible. So people do leave, and people do form new relationships, new families, new members that they connect with. And to reflect on the aging process, we all age and there is a lack of motivation, lack of the speed and response to certain situations, and lack of time, lack of tolerance the more we age. And if we develop, unluckily, a disease or our family members get sick, it becomes really challenging for us to make the decisions, and we become almost not compatible. But then going back to your values, reassessing the layers and matching processes that you and your partner are really in a good terms, and highlighting and telling each other and having talks and discussions about the challenges and try to overcome as a couple is the way forward. Sadly enough, I've seen people with MS who were in a long-term relationship with their partners, and once these people got to know they have a diagnosis, somehow the existing partners left them and they were left alone with disabling conditions such as multiple sclerosis, because the people who were committed to the relationship left them, refused to look after people who become ill and vulnerable. And I guess this is just a lack of value, and again, it's a mismatch compatibility of the philosophy of this life. Quite often I notice that men with MS are being left by women these days, but it's anecdotal evidence. This is just based on my own experience, what I witness throughout the years working with people with MS. Now, let's say you've been in love, now you love, and that comes later in your relationship. How can you form a robust relationship, and how to find the adequate, nice partner for yourself? You have to be aware of the different attachment styles, and an adult attachment designates 3 main attachment styles or manners in which people perceive and respond to intimacy in their romantic relationships with those found in children. For example, one of the types is secure, second one is anxious, and the third one is avoidant. Basically, secure people feel comfortable with intimacy and are usually warm and loving. Anxious people crave intimacy, are often preoccupied with their own relationships, and tend to worry about their partner's ability to love them back. And avoidant type people constantly try to minimize closeness. In addition, people with each of these attachment styles differ in their view of intimacy and togetherness, the way they deal with conflict, their attitude towards sex, their ability to communicate their wishes and needs, their expectations from their partner and relationships. Adult attachment research has produced hundreds of scientific papers and dozens of books that carefully delineate the way in which adults behave in close romantic ties. These studies have confirmed many times over the existence of these attachment styles in adults and in a wide range of countries and cultures. Understanding attachment style is an easy and reliable way to understand and predict people's behavior in any romantic situation. In fact, one of the main messages of the theory is that in romantic situations we are programmed to act in a predetermined manner. Interestingly enough, these attachment styles come from watching babies' behavior. Attachment styles were first defined by researchers observing the way babies, usually 9 or 18 months old, behaving during the strange situation test, a reunion with a parent after a stressful separation, and how the babies react. Anxious babies become extremely distressed when mommy leaves the room. When mother returns, she reacts ambivalently. She's happy to see her, but angry at the same time. She takes longer to calm down, and even when a baby does, it's only temporarily. A few seconds later, the baby angrily pushes mother away, and it bursts into the tears again. So that's the anxious type of the baby that then later resembles the adult and anxiety attachment style. Now, the secure one baby is visibly distressed with mommy leaving the room, and when mother returns, the baby is very happy and eager to greet her. Once in the safety of her presence, of mother's presence, the baby quick to be reassured, calm down, and resume playing activity. Now, avoidant type, when mommy leaves the room, this baby acts as though nothing had happened. And upon the return, the baby remains unmoved, ignores mother, and continues to play indifferently. But this facade doesn't tell the whole story. In fact, inside baby is neither calm nor collected. Researchers have found that these babies' heart rates are usually just as elevated as other babies who express immense distress in their cortisol levels. So how to recognize the anxious type attachment style? So these people are frequently calling, texting, emailing many times. They're always hoping that we'll run into him or her. Then silently withdrawing, not speaking, talking with other people on the phone, ignoring him or her. And then going back to sort of paying attention to how long it took them to return their phone call, waiting just as long as return theirs. So there's a lot of focus on the relationship rather than themselves. And they're always scared and they're always making threats that they're not getting along. I don't think it's going to work. Can we do something differently? I'll be better without you, etc., etc. Some manipulation is involved too, acting busy or unapproachable, ignoring phone calls, saying they have plans, but they actually don't. So that's sort of an anxious type attachment style. Now, avoidant sends mixed messages about him or his feelings towards you, about his or her commitment. It's purely because they don't want to lose that sense of their being independent, lose the sense of the freedom. Longs for an ideal relationship. They avoidant type. They give subtle hints that it will not be with you, for example. So they really look for that ideal relationship, the one person that they will rely, that they're gonna always find some fault in other person and circumstance that makes commitment impossible, and also disregards your emotional well-being, continues to disregard it despite everything, and they suggest that you're too needy, too sensitive, too overreacting, invalidating your feelings and making you second guess yourself. That's a trait of the ignorant type. Ignores things you say that inconvenient him or her, doesn't respond, changes the topic instead, addresses your concerns as in a court of law, responding to the facts without taking your feelings into account. Your messages don't get across despite your best efforts to communicate your needs. He or she doesn't seem to get the message or else ignores it. So that's sort of avoidant. And as you reckon, the most successful and the most secure way of the attachment style is the secure one. So this type of person always takes your feelings and emotions into account, always is present for you, focuses on mutual support, and is always okay with their closeness and having the contact and enjoys the moment. They are always present. As you can gather, the avoidant type is something that we quite often meet in the social places. We meet with them more often than having a secure or anxious type person because they form more independent relationships and you connect with them and they disappear. Distant type with a distant type very rarely stay together because of the nature. They both like to keep the distance and there is a line that connects them together and they can't work. The anxious and the distance type of personalities and attachment is quite challenging because anxious gets more anxious when they're receiving the distance from the distant one, and that's a vicious cycle that may affect the mental health for the anxious one. The best combination is secure to secure style. But the combination of the secure and anxious style can work quite nicely if they push the effort in their relationship. So I hope that you're getting the idea how the attachment style works and shapes our relationship, and just be aware of the different styles and how we form the relationship. If you are in love, try not to lose that sense of reality and assess and define what type of attachment and personality you're dealing with. That will help you to shape your future and future friendly, robust relationship with that person. Now, and if we would like to commit, let's say we now love and we love the right style of the attachment, a person who's got the right style for us, it doesn't cause any suffering, we feel secure, we feel good, we can do things in our life, we don't suffer. So there are some different love languages to be aware. So one is words of affirmation. Some people love to be reminded how good they are, how they achieve things in their lives, and how gratitude they are. And this sort of a affirmation in words that people do love to receive is something that is moving for some people. Some people like to receive some gifts, and that's a stimulus for them to love stronger. Some people are focused more on quality time, spending time together, nourishing that relationship. When they spend together, they ignore other aspects such as affirmation or gifts, but their priority is the quality time together. And then some people have act of service, such as making breakfast, making a coffee and bringing that to bed in the early morning on Saturday or Sunday. So doing some laundry, cleaning the house, any type of the activity that stimulates more love. And then other people are focused on physical touch. So they need to be having some cuddles, spend some time together, watching TV on the sofa. They keep the contact with each other, and that's how it brings more love. So I think this is something that I always wanted to cover as part of the living with a long-term condition like multiple sclerosis, and relationship plays a key role in our well-being and quality of life. There are numerous of the research that if the sex life is affected, if the love life in a relationship, if we are living on our own, and if we are socially isolated, it really negatively affects our well-being and quality of life. So being aware of that, being connected with people, being socially active is something that will always nourish your brain, your body, and knowing that body and brain has connection, it's going to give you a lot of more health. In summary, life is a hard work, and you can call this as your choice. When you wake up in the morning, you choose who to love, whether the person that you're waking up in the morning next to you is the one that you are going to love throughout the day and the following day. It's your choice. You cannot love more other people than yourself. And as the Eric Fromm says, the affirmation of one's life, happiness, growth, freedom is rooted in one's capacity to love. For example, in care, respect, responsibility, and knowledge, if an individual is able to love productively, he loves himself too. If he can love only others, he cannot love at all. So on this note, when you have your harmony within you, you will have the harmony around you too. So let's go and work on the love and make love and choose love. Happy Valentine's Day if you celebrate it. Bye for now.